Hey, 5 Minutes Interview family, we're back, and we've got our friend Shannon Rains back with us. And I've been thinking about a lot of things since our last conversation, and I hope you have been too.
Yeah.
Shannon, one of the things that you've really got me thinking about is the fact that we always look at what the church can do for kids, but why does the church need kids? What do kids do for the church?
Yeah, I think that is a great question because we really haven't looked at it that way for who knows, maybe ever.
Yeah.
But we look at Jesus and we see Jesus looking at it that way. We see Jesus inviting that child to his lap and putting him in his lap and blessing that child and saying, be like this child, enter in the kingdom by being like this child, not being like that adult. And so I think kids bring, I don't want to trivialize it, but they bring that childlike faith.
Yeah.
And we don't want to trivialize that because what they bring to the table is exactly who God made them to be. So
Okay.
God made them to be in relationship with God as a 2-year-old, as a 6-year-old, as a 10-year-old. And we need to honor that process the way that we honor any other maturity process. So the way that we honor it with an 18-year-old in the college setting where I teach, and we see this huge importance. But we need to put that huge importance on a 2-year-old also, because God
Yes.
made them for that time of their life also. So they can bring that to us.
Yeah, so the breaking news
Yeah.
here might be that comes across the screen. You can see it right down there is a 5-year-old's faith is just as important as a 30-year-old's faith.
Yeah, and that shouldn't be like, kind of a big deal, but it is kind of a big deal for many people in our fellowship and probably other churches as well.
Yeah.
Because we've kind of always looked at one marker for faith. We've looked at baptism. And that goes way back in our history. You can look at all the restoration history and you can see it there over and over, that marker that once you are baptized and you have to know enough to be baptized, then you enter into kingdom work, then you're a full member of the church. And what we're saying now, what we're kind of pushing back as we read scripture and we're like, how important are children to God? And we're like, God made children in his own image. They're important the moment they're born. They have a purpose the moment they're born. God doesn't have, 12, 14 years of lifespan where it's totally unimportant. And then we have a moment that suddenly it becomes important to God. They're important from the beginning. They're in relationship with God from the beginning. I fully believe they're in God's kingdom from the beginning. There's no line separating them from God's kingdom. At some point, they'll formalize that relationship with Christ. We want to see them do that, but we start by acknowledging who they already are. If they can say, I love Jesus with all my heart, Jesus lives in here.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's theology we want our adults to understand.
Yeah.
And our 2 and 3-year-olds can tell us that.
They're little proclaimers then, right? They're little,
yeah.
They're proclaimers who are making this good confession is what we used to call it, that Jesus is Lord.
Yeah. I like that a whole lot. And I'm thinking about our conversation on intergenerational worship and how do we acknowledge kids' presence in the worship assembly and not just acknowledge it, but understand that they're full participants in it. So they have something to bring to that assembly. And, you're talking about their proclaimers. If they're in the assembly and they're able to proclaim Christ, they have something to give, even if it's different language than we would use as adults. So I kind of believe what we're doing in the church. I don't kind of believe, I fully believe this. What we're doing in the church is we're taking people through a continuing process. And I like to use the words mirror, mentor, mature for that process. So if we're thinking about worship service and kids are sitting in worship service, they're watching their moms and dads, and we know that they're doing that, and we know that they're imitating mom and dad, but it doesn't stop there.
Right.
They're also being mentored into worship and entering as equal participants, as mentored children into worship. So that means we have to include them if we're going to mentor them in worship. And then they're also maturing into little worshipers that can lead us in worship. But we don't often create the space for the mentor and mature. We say, sit there and watch mom and dad. And at some point you'll get to be participants and we'll talk at your level and not an adult level.
So I can see how that helps me, because if I've got little ones who are watching me and they're my mirrors, then just like on this screen where we're making sure that, I'm wearing glasses, my hair's in place, I need to do that with the little, I need to do that with the little ones too, right? I need to make sure that I'm giving a good reflection of Christ
That's
to
right.
them.
We're not worried about who they're going to be, as far as career and vocation, all that, because what we want them to be and what they are images of God, right? So we're all created that way. They are being
Okay.
shaped and formed as Christ followers, following Jesus' footsteps. And so when you're up front and you're preaching, and if they're mirroring that, they're not really participating, they're watching. So we got to go the next 2 steps every time we meet in some way, to not just provide an opportunity to mirror. That's an important part, but also to come along the side and mentor them. This is why we gather for worship. This is what we do, and do it with them, and then mature them. So we give them the opportunity to lead us as adults in worship in some way. Read scripture, say a prayer, lead a
Yeah.
song. There's all kinds of ways. It's simple. It's not a program. You know how I feel about programs. It's not a program. It's simply putting them on the worship order for that day.
Okay. It's, yeah. So we're allowing them to use their gifts and mature, and we
Yeah.
mentor them through it. Shannon,
Yeah.
if I was going to go to Confident Kid Men, is there anyone, if I was really interested in this topic about what the church needs from kids, what would you recommend? What would I go to?
Yeah. So right now with the pandemic, and we know that a lot of kids won't get to go to Bible classes, they're only going to church service. I had a lot of preachers like you calling me and saying, how can we make this work? And so I put together an ebook that you can download. It's 9 pages, and it gives all sorts of ideas about how to pull children into that worship service, treat them as equals, mentor and mature them, and not just think of them as little passive observers sitting next to the parents, but full participants in worship.
All right. That's
So
great.
go get the
Well,
download.
yeah.
But
Hey,
hey,
all of
That's
you
right.
need to go to the Confident Kid Men and check this out. Shannon, thank you again for being with us on the show. I love this.
Thank you, Chris. This has been fun.
All right. Bye-bye.